Hello, welcome back to this God forbid series, the series where I struggle to do voiceovers for multiple days. Also the series where I go through all of the new exotic weapons to see if they're in fact good or shit. This season, a bit boring, but still worth going through. Things I would like to preference though. Firstly, everything's in legend content, -15, -20, anything in between those numbers. And secondly, I have avoided surges at literally all costs. Apart from two-tailed, because that is both void and solar, and I literally can't avoid that. But yeah, let's go. First weapon we got on this list is Queenbreakers. Queenbreakers can now apply Arc 3.0 blind and will also chain to multiple nearby enemies. Starting with a good Arc 3.0 blind, kind of nice. Can stun unstops, pretty good. Also, shots chaining to multiple enemies. Chains to like 3 enemies, not that bad. And the chain spreads the blind as well, which is actually pretty good. Okay, now the bad. This gun sucks. That Arc 3.0 blind, kind of useless. The difference between this and a normal blinding grenade is obviously the build synergy. The build synergy though is basically non-existent, considering the two things it synergizes with, it's both impractical and bad. Also, that chain lightning, it's decent, but it's not good. Like I said, it chains to like 3 enemies which are really close by, and that's about it. It doesn't really do much other than that. Its damage is really mediocre as well. Oh, by the way, this is all with the long range scope, the actual exotic part of this gun. The short range scope is practically useless in almost every way. Don't use it. But yeah, this gun sucks. If I could change it, what I would do is firstly allow these scopes to be able to be swapped in game by holding reload, and then have the short range scope utilize that chain lightning, or maybe that Arc 3.0 blind more. Maybe it chains to more targets, maybe it's bigger radius, I don't know, I don't really care. Just make it synergize with it more. That way you kind of have the long range scope for damage, which by the way is not actually that bad, and then the short range scope for more of an ad clip purpose. But yeah, moving on. Right, next up we have Leviathan's Breath. This one's gonna be quick. What I did to this thing is they allowed it to apply volatile and a perfect draw. They also increase its damage in PvP. Don't care PvP, and then they increase its damage versus champions by 30%. This gun is good. It always has been, to be honest. If you don't want to deal with damaging champions, then you stick this bow on, and then you have unstop and also a way to damage champions. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. My only gripe with this thing is the fact that it has 0 handling. If you're playing solo, then obviously you're going to be the one stunning the champions, meaning you're going to have to switch off this thing to stun champion, then switch back. And keep in mind, this thing is the thing that's killing the champions, so you kind of want the weapon up as soon as you stun the champion, and it has 0 handling, so it's a bit hard to do. Yeah, other than that, just use this goddamn gun, man. Moving on. Next up, we have Grand Overture. Basically, what they did was change the catalyst to a proper Arc 3.0 blind. And just like Queenbreakers, it doesn't really do much, not gonna lie. It can stun unstops now, which is actually better on this thing than Queenbreakers, because Queenbreakers sucks and this thing is good. But, you know, still, it, hasn't done much. To be honest though, I don't really think they were aiming to do much with this. It was just to probably get that unstop capabilities in, I guess. But yeah, overall, my feedback for this thing is the exact same as last videos, considering they haven't changed anything about the gun other than the catalyst. Firstly, missile accuracy is pretty horrible on small targets. Same with that recoil, that's still horrible. And then also the charge up time and the projectile speed is pretty horrible. It makes the gun just feel kind of awful to use. Getting rid of one of them will probably make the gun a lot more enjoyable, at least for ad clip. Yeah, that's all I got. Moving on. Next up we have Ruinous Effigy, which got suppression added to its slam attack. Unfortunately though, just like Grand Overture, this buff has basically done very little for the gun. It is quite literally only added a tiny bit of build synergy. This is suppression we're talking about here. It's not like it's a lot. And then also the ability to stun overloads, which it is not practical at. Please do not use this to stun overloads. But yeah, other than that, this gun has barely changed at all. That being said though, it's definitely not actually that bad. It's quite fun. And of course, the ammo economy with this thing is incredibly high. If I had to give feedback, the only thing I would give is that the survivability of the orb is horrible. Yeah, you have the block and yeah, heals and kind of blinds, but that is very little. And considering as well, champions and bosses do not get blinded, and they are in every single bit of high-end content, that block means very little. So I think it would be kind of cool if you maybe got a bit of void overshield every time you hit an enemy, or maybe just every time you kill an enemy you get void overshield. I don't know. And on that, like, that's all I got. Anyway, moving on. Next up we have Fourth Horseman. This gun has grown on me over the past 10 minutes. It technically didn't even do anything to the gun as well. It just received an accidental 20% damage nerf, which they removed. But in my eyes, that's a 20% damage buff. And yeah, this thing actually shreds through stuff. It won't instantly kill a champion in high tier content, don't get me wrong, but it will take them down to very low levels, if not enough to finish. And well, if it does that in high tier content, you can imagine what it does in low tier content. But yeah, only gripe about this thing is a reload's agony. Pretty sure that's intentional though, because you know, you do a shit shit ton of damage in under a second, and then you spend your entire lifespan reloading the thing. But still, you know, one reload mod fixes it. But yeah, that's about it. Moving on. Next up, we got Two-Tailed Fox, which got Scorch added to its solar rocket instead of just a custom burn. And yeah, this gun is really good now. Keep in mind, it also did get a catalyst this season, and just overall, it's so strong. You have Suppression and Jolt, which could stun Overload champions really nice. And then Ignitions in 2 hits, which can stun on-stop champions. And then all of the build potential that comes with that. I know it's not a lot because this is a heavy weapon, but still there's some exceptions. And yeah, overall this is just a really strong weapon. It gets a bit weaker when you have multiple people using it because it's a debuff gun, and debuffs can only be applied once per enemy, not per player. But still, it's still really strong. I mean, it's a gun that shoots 3 rockets, come on. But yeah, I've got no complaints here. Moving on. Alright, next up is Polaris Lance, which got the same buff as Two-Tailed. It now applies an actual Scorch instead of a custom burn. Safe to say, this gun's really strong. You can Scorch a lot in 1 perfect 5th shot and then Ignite in the 2nd perfect 5th shot. Not only is that good build synergy, like actual good build synergy this time, no buts, because it's a primary weapon, and it's also Scorch, which is probably the buff you could, you know, build the most off of. But then also, you know, Ignitions, that's damage in the first place, and also anti-champion capabilities, or unstop, I don't know why I didn't say that. But yeah, this gun's really good now, an infinite ammo gun that can do a lot of damage. It's unsurprisingly strong. My only problem with it is the fact that it's purely precision based. Some enemies are hard to hit precision hits, some enemies cannot be hit precision hits, some players aren't that good at the game. And also, the zoom on this thing is really high, it's really hard to hit shots when you're close to enemies. Having a way to activate the perk off of body shots or just off of kills, you know what, that would work as well, would be really goddamn nice. Probably have to be careful though about what you do with it, because if you buff it just a bit too much, this will become one of the strongest primaries in the game. But yeah, that's all I got for this thing. Moving on. Alright, I can't be arsed slinging around. Sunshot. Scorch got added to the explosion on kill. Buff is so useless. It is 15 Scorch stacks. It is like worse incandescent. A better buff would have just been applying Scorch on hits instead of on kills. Still though, really good gun overall, use it. Next up, Prometheus Lens. Buff was incandescent added to its catalyst. I literally didn't notice incandescent was added to its catalyst. Incandescent is not as strong as a perk as the community seems to think. Still though, really good gun as expected from an exotic trace. Only problem is the aura size is really hard to maintain, having it either grow a lot quicker or have a grace period after you stop shooting where the aura size does not reset. A lot like how Cold Heart works would be really goddamn good for the gun. Yet again though, good gun, use it. Next up, 1000 Voices, which now applies a little bit of Scorch with every explosion and can ignite if every single explosion hits a target. It can also ignite with every single shot when firing at full speed, which is definitely very nice. Unfortunately though, the damage of the gun is genuinely pathetic. It makes me laugh. Please buff the damage of this gun, or at least the ammo economy, because they don't match. And yeah, and that's it. Bye. No, I'm just kidding. That was quite quick, wasn't it, huh? How the hell did I manage to spend 20 minutes on Last Better or Worse? That's, kind of insane. And also, I keep cringing at myself while watching this goddamn video because I keep sounding like I'm talking to Bungie himself. My ass is not that popular. But yeah, I hope this was at least helpful. It probably won't be since it's so late into the season, but you know, still. And yeah, that's about it. See ya.